The desert wind carried dust and silence in equal measure, and the cowboy had learned to survive both. He rode alone most days, a quiet figure against the endless sweep of gold and red, believing solitude was simpler than people. Out on the frontier, feelings were liabilities. Attachments were anchors, and anchors could get a man killed. Then he saw her by the river at dusk. She stood still as the cottonwoods whispered above her, braids dark against her buckskin dress, eyes reflecting the last light of the sinking sun. She wasn't gathering water. She wasn't hiding either. She was simply there, watching the current as if it spoke a language only she understood. When her gaze shifted to him, she didn't flinch. That unsettled him more than if she had reached for a weapon. Their first exchange was careful, polite, measured like strangers, circling the edges of a fire. He kept his voice even, his posture loose but ready. She answered without fear, her tone steady, curious rather than cautious. There was no accusation in her eyes, no assumption, just awareness. He told himself it was nothing, but he returned the next evening, and the one after that. Conversations stretched longer each time. She asked him about the open land, about why he rode alone when most men sought company. He answered in fragments. A ranch lost to debt, a brother buried too young, a life that taught him not to rely on anything he couldn't saddle and ride away from. She listened differently than others had. Not with pity, not with judgment, just presence. One evening, as the sky burned crimson and the air cooled, she stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint scar near her temple, the quiet strength in the line of her jaw. "You hide too much," she said softly. He gave a half smile, the kind that kept people at a distance. That's how a man survives. Her eyes searched his face, unafraid of what she might find. "No," she said gently. "That's how a man disappears." The words hit deeper than he expected. Before he could retreat behind humor or silence, her hand reached for his, warm, certain, real. "Let me feel everything," the Apache said. And the cowboy was left speechless, not because he didn't understand her, but because for the first time in years, someone had asked him not for strength, not for protection, but for truth. The storm rolled in without warning, swallowing the wide blue sky and thick gray clouds that pressed low over the plains. The cowboy had seen enough seasons to recognize trouble, but even he hadn't expected the wind to turn that fast. Dust spiraled around them, sharp and blinding, and thunder cracked across the open land like a rifle shot. "Cabin's not far," he called over the rising wind. She didn't argue. She ran beside him, steady and sure-footed, her braids whipping behind her as they pushed toward the abandoned wooden shelter near the ridge. By the time they reached it, rain was already slamming into the earth, heavy and relentless. Inside, the cabin smelled of old timber and forgotten years. The door groaned shut against the storm. Rain hammered the roof, loud enough to drown out almost everything else. Almost. He paced the small space, hat in his hands, jaw tight. Being alone with her like this felt more dangerous than the lightning outside. "This ain't smart," he muttered. She leaned against the wall, watching him with that calm, searching gaze. "What isn't?" "Us." The word came out rough, honest. Thunder boomed, rattling the thin windows. She stepped forward slowly, as if approaching a skittish horse. "You think feeling is weakness," she said. "I think feeling gets people hurt," he shot back. The truth of it lingered between them. He'd buried too many things: family, dreams, trust. He had built walls thick enough to survive anything. Or so he believed. She closed the distance until only inches separated them. Her hand lifted, resting lightly against his chest, right over his heart. Even through his shirt, her touch felt steady, grounded. "Then let it hurt," she whispered. He froze. No one had ever spoken to him that way. Most people wanted his strength, his silence, his ability to endure. She wanted something far more terrifying: his vulnerability. "You don't know what you're asking," he said, voice low. "I do," she answered. "I'm asking you to stop running." Rain poured harder, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He searched her face for doubt. There was none, only courage. Slowly his shoulders loosened. His hand rose, brushing damp strands of hair from her cheek. His touch was hesitant, almost reverent. He wasn't surrendering control. He was surrendering fear. And in that fragile, thunder-shaken cabin, He realized that opening his heart might be the bravest thing he had ever done. Rumors on the frontier moved faster than horses. By the time the cowboy sensed the shift in the air, it was already too late. Conversations quieted when he entered the saloon. Ranch hands who once clapped his shoulder now measured him with cautious eyes. Across the river, whispers curled through the Apache camp like smoke before a fire. He had known it wouldn't stay simple. The world they lived in demanded sides. So he tried to fix it the only way he knew how, by pulling back. He skipped their usual place by the river, rode longer routes along the fence lines, threw himself into work until his muscles ached and his thoughts dulled. But distance didn't quiet the feeling. It sharpened it. 3 mornings passed before she found him. The sun had just broken over the hills, painting the land in pale gold. He was tightening a saddle strap when he sensed her presence. He didn't need to turn around to know it was her. "You think I wouldn't notice?" she asked calmly. He kept his eyes on the leather in his hands. "Notice what?" "That you're running." He exhaled slowly and faced her. She stood firm, chin lifted, eyes steady but not angry. Hurt flickered there, though, and that was worse. "This is bigger than us," he said. "People are talking. They don't trust it. They don't trust me." "And you think leaving first makes it easier?" she replied. "I think it keeps you safe." The honesty surprised even him. Her expression softened, but she didn't step back. "You don't get to choose my fear for me." He looked past her toward the distant hills. "You deserve someone certain. Someone who belongs to your world." "I don't want someone certain," she said. "I want someone real." The words settled heavy in his chest. He had spent years believing love required stability, land, approval, peace between neighbors. She believed it required courage. "I can't promise you easy," he admitted. "I don't want easy." Silence stretched between them, thick but not empty. The wind moved gently through the grass, carrying the scent of earth and sun. For the first time, he allowed himself to truly see what she was offering. Not comfort, not fantasy. Commitment. Not to a perfect future, but to facing whatever came together. And standing there under the wide, unforgiving sky, he realized the greater risk wasn't loving her. It was losing her because he was too afraid to try. The confrontation came at sunset, when the sky burned orange and red as if the horizon itself had been set on fire. A line of riders moved across the plains toward the river, their silhouettes sharp against the fading light. The cowboy recognized some of them, men he had shared drinks with, traded cattle with, laughed beside. Their faces were harder now. He rode out to meet them before they could cross the ridge. "What's this about?" he asked evenly, though he already knew. Murmurs rose from the group. Words like betrayal, loyalty, lines you don't cross. One man pushed his horse forward. "You picking sides now?" The cowboy held his ground. "I'm choosing what's right." A bitter laugh answered him. "You think mixing with them won't bring trouble?" "Trouble's already here," he replied. "You just want someone to blame." Tension snapped tight as a drawn wire. Hands hovered near holsters. The wind stirred dust between them, restless and uncertain. He could have stepped back, could have shrugged it off, claimed it was nothing. That would have been easier, but easier wasn't honest. "She's not your enemy," he said firmly. "And neither am I." A shove, a fist. The scuffle broke fast and messy. He didn't draw his gun, even when one of them reached for his. He fought with restraint, absorbing blows, giving just enough to stand his ground without escalating it into bloodshed. When it was over, the riders pulled back, shaken more by his resolve than by the bruises forming along his jaw. "You'll regret this," one of them muttered. "Maybe," he answered, "but not for loving her." They rode off with the dying light. By the time he reached the river, dusk had deepened into indigo. She was waiting, as if she had felt the shift in the air. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the cut on his cheek. "You chose," she said softly. He nodded. "I did." Fear still lingered between their worlds. Nothing had magically healed. Suspicion would take time to fade, if it ever did. But something inside him had settled. He stepped closer, taking her hands in his, no hesitation left. "I don't know what this road brings," he admitted, "but I won't pretend I don't feel it anymore." Her forehead rested gently against his. "Let me feel everything," she whispered again, and this time he didn't go speechless. He answered by staying.